Salam alaikum, mera naam Robin hai. Naam is Arabic.
Naam is
is Arabic. Hai is the same as in Farsi.
Yeah.
So my name's Robin Butler, partner and head of impact at Sturgeon Capital. Sturgeon's a London-based VC that invests across frontier and emerging markets, and the kind of reason I'm here in Pakistan is we're launching a new fund in the middle of this year. We want to be actively investing here, so come spend some time on the ground and see where the opportunities are, what the challenges are, and get a better sense of real life. If you look at kind of frontier and emerging markets, there's a kind of spectrum of the digital transformation for them. So if you put, countries such as, say, China being out in front, and you work your way back through kind of Southeast Asia and India and LATAM as well, more recently, and essentially there's a kind of playbook. Once you hit a kind of inflection point with smartphone and internet penetration, those are the kind of rails and enablers in order to build larger technology companies. Now, sort of those countries already mentioned have kind of are going through that process now, sort of further down the line, but there's a large number of countries that are at an earlier stage in that process, and it's those countries that we want to be investing in. It's a kind of 10, 20, 30-year play to be in early, to be investing sort of throughout that kind of life cycle, supporting kind of local businesses, using the network and experience from investing across the region. And as I said, it's for us, it's why we come and spend time in the countries that we invest in. We hire local teams, and we look to kind of really embed ourselves within the ecosystem, so that we can add maximum value for the companies, and hopefully create the maximum amount of value for both the countries that we're investing in, and then ultimately for our investors as well. So generally, I mean, we're kind of sector agnostic. I think probably more driven by the kind of opportunity itself and the team and kind of how they've been building their business. But broadly, sort of marketplaces, both B2B, B2C, B2B SaaS, especially that focused on SMEs. And then fintech, particularly where it's kind of embedded or integrated within another product or service. Now, kind of looking at Pakistan and having been here for the last 10 days, I think there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in the kind of B2B space. I think you've got, there's the number that's at the beginning of everyone's presentation is 220 million people. Smartphone internet penetration and that kind of thing. But I think when you break that number down in terms of actual kind of purchasing power, the demographics are, whatever, I hear different figures, but 55-60% of the population below the age of 25, limited purchasing power as a result of that, is, okay, well, where are you and how are you building your B2C business? And kind of, can you really build a sort of long-term sustainable one now? But you look in the B2B space, whether that's with sort of either SMEs or particularly with some of the kind of larger corporates, they have very significant pain points, real inefficiencies in the way that business happens, whether it's on a logistics angle, procurement, fulfillment, payments, all of these areas, they have significant problems, and ultimately if you can reduce their costs by 5 to 10%, increase their revenues by 5 to 10%, that's a really meaningful impact on them, and ultimately the kind of ability to pay is higher. At this stage, I think maybe where I get kind of more, can build greater conviction. I think longer term that B2C play will be really interesting, and there are some interesting models already around, some talented people tackling it, but I think from a kind of conviction perspective at the moment, I think the B2B space, I have a natural bias there anyway, but it's kind of continued here as well. I mean, we kind of focus on sort of pre-Series A, Series A stage, and by that point you're expecting to see us, in most cases, that a sort of degree of pretty good sense on product market fit, and certainly a kind of a decent amount of data on both the kind of the product usage and interaction with the customer, and then also a sense of actually how you're going to grow the business and scale it, and saying, well, now we need the money in order to actually go and do that. So that's kind of really what we're looking for. And I mean, there's all that you want to see: the market size, the founding team. I think there's sort of two type of founders that stand out. One is the one with the industry expertise, the one who's been in it for a long time, and I think that's particularly relevant for someone doing a B2B business where your customer is unlikely to be a sort of tech-savvy young entrepreneur, or it's someone with the kind of experience working in and building startups. Now they have a much better sense of what you need kind of internally, how you optimize at the different sort of stages. A combination of the two is probably the ideal. It's been fantastic. I've had a really good time. I mean, everyone has been incredibly hospitable and welcoming, and before I came I put something on LinkedIn saying I was coming to Pakistan, and it just blew up. It's like completely overwhelming and encouraging, like 1,000 likes, like 600 messages, 1,500 connections. It's insane. There's a whole load of people who got in touch. So that I think, gave me a pretty good sense of the sort of welcome I was going to get. And yeah, it's been, I've had a really good time.